You know, we've all had our bad days. There's days when we've lost a family member. There are days when we have lost a job. There are days when we have money. We've all had those days, and some of you may have experienced that type of day today, or yesterday, or last week, or last month. But I want to tell you that there is always hope, no matter what you're going through. And God gives us examples. God shows us that when we stay with Him and through thick and thin and hanging in there, instead of turning to drugs, crime, alcohol, whatever it may be, when we hang in there with Him, He'll see us through. Here's an example of that. Turn to Job chapter 1, verse 6. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with him. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Now, this was a gathering, a meeting, so to speak. It says Satan answered the Lord from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." Now, have you really thought about this? Here's a situation where God had presented Job to Satan himself. Now, basically what Satan was saying was he was roaming the earth, meaning he was looking for some trouble. He was looking to make trouble. That's basically what that meant. So basically God was saying, okay, since you're looking for someone, paraphrasing of course, I got just the right person for you. How about Job? Have you considered Job? Now, when you really think about this, Job is probably like, if Job knew this, he's probably like, me? Why are you picking me? And God would have said, why not you? You're the man for the job. Because I need to put Satan in his place on this situation. See, he doesn't think there's a man out here who will hold their ground and not turn their back on me. But Job is the man. Verse 9. Does Job fear God for nothing? Satan replied. Have you put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. So in other words, Satan was saying, okay, you've given him everything, he has everything, he's rich, you know, he's got children, he has an abundance. I'm sure he'll be just like everybody else who'll point the finger at you and turn around and curse you out. Verse 12. The Lord said to Satan, very well then, everything he has is in your power. But on the man himself, do not lay a finger. Do not strike him, do not harm him. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day, when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the older brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword. In other words, they killed the servants. And I'm the only one who had escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants. So the fire of God, I'm figuring that it's lightning coming from the sky. The fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I'm the only one who escaped to tell you. In verse 17, while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. And they put the servants to the sword. In other words, they killed the servants. And I'm the only one who escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them and they're dead. And I'm the only one who escaped to tell. And at this point, verse 20, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. And this was a custom when there was great sorrow and disappointment. Verse 4, skin for skin, Satan said. A man will give all he has for his own life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. Verse 6, the Lord said to Satan, very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and inflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Verse 8, then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. And his wife said to him, are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. But Job replied, you are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. And I'll stop there. That was at verse 10. But after all he went through, and he even told his wife to stop talking foolish and still accept God for who he is. How are we? How are you when the amount of trouble that we have comes nowhere near this, where you lose your children, just like that? You lose all your possessions, just like that. Your money, just like that. You lose everything that you've built up. You lose it just like that. How do you respond when it's nowhere near the amount that Job went through? How do you respond? Do you blame God if you lose a loved one and say that the loved one is very young? Do you blame God? How do you respond? Always keep your integrity and always keep God first. And even in the midst of losses, remember, he is the provider. He is the one who, whatever you had in the first place, he can replenish. Now, I know that when it comes to a loved one, that's a harder pill to swallow. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. We are all spirits. So in other words, the flesh may go, but our spirit remains. Our spirit lives on. We don't die. The spirit does not die. The flesh dies, but the spirit does not. I don't think anybody is put to the test like he was. But again, it shows an example. And it shows the example of the most extreme of what one person had to go through. And as you read on throughout the rest of Job, you see he passes the test. He continues, even though times got tense, and he just wanted to, give up, but he would not blame God. And he came close. There was one point where he made God mad, but he did not lose his integrity on that. Maintaining your integrity, maintaining your faith, and maintaining your trust. So,